Welcome to 506B versus 506C Explained. In the next few minutes, armed with my whiteboard, I'll highlight the key differences between these two popular Regulation D exemptions and which one best suits your capital raise. Rule 506B and Rule 506C are safe harbor exemptions within SEC Regulation D under the Securities Act of 1933. Now, under Rule 506B or 506C, an issuer or someone raising capital for a private offering can raise unlimited capital without filing a full registration statement with the SEC, provided it follows the rule's conditions. Rule 506B is the traditional private offering safe harbor, and Rule 506C, created by new SEC regulations in 2013, permits issuers to advertise their offering to the general public, but restricts sales to verified accredited investors. In this video, I'm going to break down the 4 key differences for you, and I'll also provide you with some insight into how to choose the Reg D rule that's right for you. I'm Jimmy Atkinson. Welcome to Fund Playbook. This is a show that's all about how to launch and raise capital for your very own private fund or real estate syndication. I release a new episode every week. Hit that subscribe button to follow the show. So filing a private offering exemption under Regulation D basically falls into one of 2 different rules, 2 different types of safe harbors you can use. One of them is Rule 506B, and the other one is Rule 506C. And first, a little bit of background on Regulation D and these 2 different rules. The Securities Act of 1933 says that public offerings must register with the SEC, but in 1982, the SEC created Regulation D as a safe harbor exemption for private offerings, so you don't need to file fully with the SEC. You don't need to register with the SEC for your offering that is private. You can now offer a private offering. If you comply with a Reg D rule, you can raise unlimited capital without full SEC registration. In 2012, President Obama signed the Jobs Act into law, and then as part of that authorized the SEC in 2013 to split Regulation D Rule 506 into 2 different rules. Rule 506B is the old rule. Rule 506C is the new rule. So it essentially created Rule 506C as a way to allow general solicitation. Now, these 2 rules offer very different paths for syndicators and fund managers. And in a moment, I'll show you the 4 key differences between these 2 rules and which one may be right for you. Okay, so now I want to spend a few minutes highlighting the 4 key differences that matter when it comes to comparing Rule 506B with Rule 506C. And these 4 different differences are whether or not advertising is permitted, whether or not non-accredited investors are allowed into the fund, whether or not investor verification is required by the fund, and finally, whether or not you need to have a pre-existing relationship with all of your investors. So we'll go through one step at a time here. Advertising is permitted with Rule 506C, and this is really the number one reason why you might want to pick a 506C offering exemption is if you need to market the investment opportunity, if you want to take your fund or your syndication to the marketplace and perform marketing on it and advertise the deal. Also, this is known in the rules as general solicitation. With the Rule 506B fund, advertising is prohibited. You are not allowed to take the fund offering, your private offering, your syndication, whatever it is, the security, and advertise it to the general public. Okay, second row here is non-accredited investors. Are you able to take on any non-accredited investors into your offering? With the Rule 506C, no. Every single one of your investors has to be an accredited investor. And an accredited investor, in case you don't know, is essentially anybody who has a net worth of greater than $1 million, excluding his primary residence, or anybody who has income of greater than $200,000 per year, or $300,000 per year if filing jointly with a spouse. Now, Rule 506B does have the ability for you to take in non-accredited investors. In fact, you can take in up to 35, okay? But only up to 35 non-accredited investors. One thing I should note, the vast majority of 506B funds that I've encountered require that their investors be accredited anyway. It keeps their compliance costs down significantly. Third, investor verification. Do you need to verify the accredited investor status of all of your investors? And with Rule 506C, yes, you do. And it's a little bit of a burden to do so, but not too great. And then with a 506B fund, no, you do not need to verify the accredited investor status of your investors. So you need third-party accredited investor verification with Rule 506C. That's basically the trade-off to being able to advertise, is then you do need to run them through a verification system at the time when they submit their investment to you, at the time that they're signing their subscription docs. Finally, the fourth and final key difference between these two: do you need to have a pre-existing relationship in order to work with or take on money? With a 506C, no, you don't need a pre-existing relationship, and that's a good thing. It makes it easier, so I'm going to write that in green. And with a 506B, though, yes, you do need a pre-existing relationship. Again, you're not allowed to advertise. So how do you find your investors? Well, you need to have a pre-existing relationship with each and every one of them. So those are the four key differences between Rule 506B and Rule 506C. And essentially, it comes down once again to the biggest trade-off being general solicitation. Can you market the deal? Can you advertise the deal? Your offering, your syndication, your fund, whatever you term your security to be. Advertising freedom versus the burden of verification, those are the trade-offs essentially. Everything else, the Form D filing, the anti-fraud liability, is the same between these two, and they're generally governed by Regulation D. But the detail really comes down to, can you advertise the deal or not? And do you need to perform investor verification on all of the investors that come in? One final note about investor verification: there are a number of third-party services that can help you do this. It's essentially as easy as obtaining a letter from an attorney or a CPA of your LP, or seeing a bank statement of your LPs. Either one of those, and there's a few other verification methods that would suffice, and there's a number of third-party services that assist with that. This isn't a huge burden, and if you need to advertise your deal, it's one that's worth taking. So why would you ever want to do a 506B, or why would you want to bother with the additional compliance of a 506C? Well, there's a couple of different reasons. I'll paint for you a picture of a couple different scenarios. Scenario one: why might you want to do a 506B offering? Why might you want to not advertise the offering? Well, then you don't have to verify the accredited investor status of all your investors. It makes the compliance just a little bit lighter, a little bit less burdensome. And here's a couple different examples of offerings that might want to take advantage of a Rule 506B. One is if you're doing a very small friends and family real estate syndication, or very small friends and family capital raise, and you know you already are going to have enough money cobbled together from just a few friends and family. Maybe also some of them might not all be accredited, but you're getting some money from your uncle, you're getting some money from grandma and grandpa, you're getting some money from your best friend, from your neighbor, you're putting in a little bit of money yourself, and you're raising a couple $1 million from those people, and that's really enough. You don't need to advertise the deal. You have enough capital among your inner circle, among your network. In that case, you're likely better off filing a Reg D exemption under Rule 506B. You don't need to advertise it, and then this way you don't need to verify the accredited investor status of all of your investors. And in fact, they might not all be accredited anyway. Another example when you might want to just do a Rule 506B is maybe you have a very large deal, but you already have a very large network. You're already working with a very large network of pre-existing investors that you have a pre-existing relationship with a broker-dealer team that you have pre-existing relationships with, of RIA groups that you have pre-existing relationships with. If you already have a very large capital base and you don't feel like you need to go out to market, that you don't need to advertise this deal publicly, that you can solicit all of the capital from your large network, maybe it's a $100 million deal, but you're an institutional quality capital raiser and fund manager, you can do it without the added complexity of a Rule 506C offering. That said, Rule 506C isn't that complex. It's one extra hoop that investors need to jump through, that the fund manager has to jump through during the subscription process. You're already asking them to wire you money. You're already asking them to sign some subscription docs. That's the point in time where you would also verify their accredited investor status, oftentimes through a third-party service provider. So in this case, when would you might want to be a Rule 506C? Well, if you are going to need to rely on advertising, if you know you don't have the existing network or the existing investor base, if it goes beyond a friends and family raise and you need to get your offering out to the market to advertise on YouTube or LinkedIn or crowdfunding platforms or email marketing, or even if you want to just put a little bit of information about your offering on your website, you need to file as a 506c exemption offering. So in that case, you need to make sure that your audience skews accredited, skews high net worth, and you need to also be comfortable verifying every investor. And if an investor comes to your door and they're not accredited, you're going to have to turn them away, unfortunately. But 506c does this huge lift of opening the door to public marketing, what the SEC refers to as general solicitation. So which one is right for you? Well, by this point in the video, you probably already have a pretty good idea of which one you need to go with. But essentially, first of all, ask yourself, do you need to advertise your deal? Do you need to go outside of your existing network of investors and find new investors? Do you need to take your offering to the marketplace? If the answer to that is yes, then you absolutely need to do a Rule 506c offering. If you don't, then you're fine with a 506b. And that is probably the single biggest decision point is, do you need to advertise the deal or not? Secondarily, and especially if you do decide that you are going to advertise, you need to ask yourself also, are you willing to, or do you have the ability to verify the accredited investor status of every single one of your investors? And are you okay with requiring that all of your investors be accredited? If the answer to that is yes, then you're in good shape to offer a Rule 506c offering. If not, then you may want to reconsider. A Rule 506b might be better for you. If you're thinking maybe you need to do advertising, maybe you don't, and maybe this compliance burden might just end up pushing you in one direction or the other. So a couple of things to think about with regards to which one might be right for you. And one other note, by the way, it is possible to transition from offering a Rule 506b investment to a 506c. And I've seen that before. I've seen some issuers start off with a 506b fund and then they start wanting to advertise. So they transition their fund or they open a new fund that is exempted under Rule 506c. But this is a one-way street. You cannot practically go back in the other direction. It's not advised that you go back in the other direction from being a C back to a B. But transitioning from a B to a C is pretty frequent, happens pretty commonly. So in closing, do you already have a warm network in place? Is it just a friends and family raise? 506b is probably smoother, but do you need public marketing? Do you need scale? Do you need reach? Do you want to advertise your deal? 506c gives you that reach. Just be ready to verify the accredited investor status of all of your investors coming in. I would also urge you to consult a securities attorney early on in the process. Switching exemptions mid-raise can be a painful process. And again, going from B to C is somewhat easy, but going the other direction from a C to a B is practically impossible in most cases. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, hit that thumbs up button, and for more information about raising capital, I would encourage you to download my free private capital playbook. It's packed with tools and tips to help you raise smarter, and you can download this free guide by heading over to our website, fundplaybook.com/capital. That's fundplaybook.com/capital. And if you have any questions about Rule 506b or 506c, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and listening. Please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. And once again, if you enjoyed today's show, hit that thumbs up button. By the way, Fund Playbook is now also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search for Fund Playbook on the app or visit fundplaybook.com and click that Apple or Spotify button. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll be back soon with another episode.